Hi, I'm back with the farmers' protest where the deadlock continues. Farmers are staying put at Delhi's borders, and in fact, more are joining in. But today, I want to join the dots between India's food program, the PDS system, the MSP or the minimum support price you've heard of often now, and the states of Punjab and Haryana. I'll also try and glean on what lies ahead based on my conversations with people on both sides of the talks. Now let's get started. Every year, the Indian government runs a mammoth food program. It buys rice and wheat for our PDS system. That's our public food distribution system. Almost 67% of this country relies on PDS, where food grain is made available for the poor and vulnerable at subsidized rates. Now, how do we go about doing that? Well, it starts with what's called the State-Run Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices, or the CACP. It announces a minimum support price, the MSP. They do it for 23 crops every year. Now, the price varies every year, but this MSP is a benchmark. It is announced about 2 months ahead of harvest season. It is announced in newspapers, on social media perhaps, also on television channels. So farmers know this is the price the government will pay for their crop if it is an MSP crop. Now, while MSPs are announced for 23 crops, the Food Corporation of India, the government agency that procures this grain, buys mostly paddy and wheat at MSP. Crops such as lentils, cotton, and oilseeds do have MSP, but they are not procured by government agencies. Pulses are sometimes. Why is that? Well, the government doesn't want to, it cannot, they're not part of the PDS. Now, after buying this rice and wheat from farmers at MSP, it is sold to the poor at subsidized rates under the PDS system. The government compensates the FCI, obviously, for its losses. Now, every year, a big chunk of the FCI's procurement comes from the states of Punjab and Haryana. In fact, farmers from these two states sell almost their entire produce to the FCI at the MSP rate. This is thanks to well-developed market yards like the mandis and efficient procurement centers. It is not the situation in many other parts of the country that may also be growing wheat and rice. So to anyone who's trying to understand this complex situation, there are certain things, doubts and concerns that keep coming up. Let me try and explain some of them. Number one, this state procurement via the FCI means there are guaranteed prices that the farmers will get, the MSP. There is a stability to their income. Number two, this is also grain that feeds 67% of this country under our PDS system. Number three, this is grain that guarantees as a buffer stock and can be used in times of crisis like the current pandemic. Number four is the argument that the guaranteed price or the MSP means that farmers only want to produce more rice and wheat. Yes, there is a rice-wheat cycle in Punjab. Yes, we do produce more than we need, even if we were to include buffer stocks. Yes, the FCI continues to procure more, even though they have no space to store. And therefore, we see images of grain piling up and rotting. So the question that comes is, why don't we export? Well, two reasons for that. Despite sitting on massive amounts of rice and wheat, the FCI finds it tough to export as MSP and its own storage cost makes the FCI's rice, wheat more expensive. Also, one more thing to consider. Since the origin of this policy was to feed the PDS system, it has a genesis in food shortage and scarcity. The consideration at that time was to maximize the yield and lower the cost of production. So unfortunately, this wheat and rice is not best suited for export. Another statement I've got a lot in my comments is that the MSP is a safety net. It is, but it's also not. Now, when 67% of your population depends on PDS, stopping MSP is going to be tough. Why do I say it's not a safety net? Because government procurement is the safety net. Remember, the government announces MSP for 23 other crops but doesn't do anything, doesn't procure. So announcing the MSP for those crops and not procuring makes it just a number. One question that's come up a lot is that the farmer should produce what the consumer wants. Why are they producing wheat and rice which the consumer doesn't want and the FCI can't store? So to that, there's an absolutely strong argument, yes, to be made for moving out of the wheat and paddy monoculture, especially for the states of Punjab and Haryana. More crop diversification is definitely needed. Also, because these crops are depleting the water table. And when you add free and subsidized power to that, it makes it even more complicated. But the question also to ask is, where have the incentives been to grow other crops? Shouldn't farmers be expecting a stability in prices, or do we want them to withstand all the pulls and pressures of market forces all by themselves? And the third question, why does the government not procure other crops at MSP? Well, some of these questions remain unanswered in a sense. So what next? I'm going to lean on politics to ride this one out. It's clear this is a deadlock. Stakes are high for both sides. Number two, most political observers will say this government draws a lot of its political capital from holding its ground, from not backing down, from not taking back looks. Well, the hubris, if I may call it, in lack of consultation or building a consensus still continues to be holding. Politically, the government could take risks. No one, not the Shiromani Akali Dal, its one-time ally, nor the Congress, nor the Aam Aadmi Party is looking particularly good here. Number four, farmers are challenging these laws, saying that they trample over the states' rights. But remember, it's not as if states are coming out in very strong voices here. Also, if you ask for a legislation on the MSP from the centre, then that argument feels a little weak. The crux of the story is farmers are not backing down. The moral compass points towards them, is on their side. If the government can get away with promulgating a very significant legislation like this one in the hasty manner like it did in Parliament without adequate consultation, it certainly doesn't augur well. I'll leave it here. If this has been worthy of your time, do leave a comment. We'll put a video index as well in the description very soon. Remember, here at NewsWorthy, we're getting you the text of the story, but also the context. Do get your friends and family to subscribe to this channel and click on that bell icon. I'll leave it here. Bye for now. I'll see you soon.